Kamala Harris says that she is not done with politics and that she could possibly be the next president of the United States. Given her ambitions, it is worth asking whether she would be able to overcome the challenges that hindered her first campaign, especially her seeming lack of ability to reach out to male voters who ended up giving Donald Trump 55% of their vote compared to just 43% for her. Would that happen again if she ran for the top job in 2028? We first need to understand what went wrong in 2024. If we rewind to the final months of the last election, you'll remember that Kamala was encouraged to reach out to young men who appeared to be slipping away from the Democratic Party. Young people had usually been reliably blue voters, but there was evidence of a growing gender divide splitting Gen Z, with young women holding increasingly more liberal views than young men. As Trump started to engage more with manosphere podcasters like Theo Vaughn, Ben Shapiro, and Lex Friedman, Kamala was urged to do the same, and especially to go on Joe Rogan's podcast. But she did not. Instead, she appeared to delegate male outreach duties to her vice presidential pick, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, while she focused mostly on reaching out to women and especially professional women of color who had been loyal backers of her candidacy and who were considered the backbone of the Democratic Party. The results suggest this approach did not work. So why didn't Kamala try harder to reach out to men herself? 3 reasons stand out for me. 1, Kamala's personal upbringing and life experiences. 2, society's comparative ignorance of men's vulnerability compared to women's. And 3, the gender ideology undergirding the contemporary Democratic Party. Let's explore each reason. First, while Kamala has a fascinating and even inspirational personal story, her upbringing did not prepare her for a moment where she might need to focus her attention on the needs or interests of men, because, for the most part, males have not played key roles in many parts of her life. Born to a Jamaican father and an Indian mother in California, her parents divorced when Kamala was 6, so she was raised without a dad in the home. She also had no brothers, just a younger sister with whom she was very close. Her parents' families were far away in other countries, so she also did not spend a significant amount of time with her grandfathers, uncles, or cousins during her formative years. Later, when she went to Howard University, she joined a black sorority and formed many lifelong friendships with her sisters. Thus, for most of her early life, female connections comprised most of her meaningful relationships. After she earned a law degree in San Francisco and started working as a deputy DA in the Bay Area, she dated Willie Brown, a prominent black politician who, at the age of 60 then, was more than 30 years her senior, and even 4 years older than her own father. Her lack of male role models likely explains how she could have thought it was appropriate to have a romantic relationship with a man who was so excessively age mismatched. I believe that the scientific term for this is daddy issues. But for the next 2 decades, she focused on her career as a prosecutor and politician, racking up many milestones and firsts. During that time, she would have engaged with tough and intelligent men in the worlds of law and politics, as well as interacting with many male criminals and victims in court. Knowledge would have been gained about men in this process, but it isn't clear what she learned from it. When Kamala was 49, she married Doug Emhoff. He had 2 children, a 15-year-old daughter, and a 19-year-old son who was already attending college in another state. She never gave birth to any children herself. Let me be clear, this is not a criticism. I have great respect for the way that she, Doug, and his ex-wife became friends and co-parented the children together. But the fact that she never had children of her own, that she never raised a son herself, and that she committed to a stable marriage relationship only relatively late in life just means that she did not have the kind of maternal or marital interactions that many other women have, which usually offer them extraordinary, intensive insights into the world of boys and men. Of course, none of this is her fault either. Life just happened this way. For instance, today, Kamala is an aunt to one niece and a grand aunt to two grand nieces. There are no nephews or grandnephews in the picture. So even in her expanded U.S. family tree, there just have not been many familial opportunities for her to organically interact with males compared to females. Again, this is absolutely fine. But I do believe it helps us understand why she might have a certain blind spot regarding males' needs or desires in the present, because she's never really had to see to them herself in any of her familial capacities, not with a father, uncle, brother, son, or nephew. The opportunity just never came up for her. Thus, to answer the original question, it is easy to see why she might not have felt comfortable inserting herself into podcasts or interviews revolving around male-focused concerns. Her life experiences had not prepared her for that. The second challenge for Kamala was that she grew up at a time when women were trying to focus more on their own needs than those of men. In the 1970s and 80s, women were expanding their social horizons, getting into politics, business, medicine, and the law, with trailblazers opening up new opportunities for Kamala and her generation. She played her own part, too, in the 90s and beyond, helping consolidate some of those gains for women and even opening up new vistas for women of color. However, while she was understandably focused on advancing women's goals, and her own, of course, she likely missed the changing fortunes that many young men have experienced in the last 2 decades. For instance, according to Richard Reeves' book Of Boys and Men, boys are 3 times more likely to get expelled from school than girls. Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. 71% of opioid deaths are by men, compared to 29% for women. There is a 17 percentage point gap between women who earn bachelor's degrees and men. And for more than 30 years at this point, a higher percentage of women have been attending college than men. Unfortunately, when such knowledge is shared in liberal circles, it can be met with defensiveness, as if acknowledging men's struggles would reduce attention to women's needs. It's seen as a zero-sum struggle. Indeed, especially for the educated class that Kamala moves in, it would feel morally retrograde to allow one's focus to move away from women's issues to include those of men as well. The two just don't seem equivalent. Even worse, since Republicans embraced men's issues before Democrats, the Dems instinctively shrugged off its significance by favoring women's issues during the election, such as access to reproductive health care. Given Kamala's upbringing and her understandable focus on women's issues for much of her political career, I think she likely missed the magnitude of how men's prospects have changed over time, and how manosphere content creators have been helping shape men's voting decisions. If she was like most progressives, She might have even viewed such manosphere podcasts as anti-feminist expressions of toxic masculinity rather than, say, a quest for young men to try to find their place in this world. Either way, when she decided not to engage young men on their platform of choice, she and the Democrats missed a huge opportunity. Hey, just real quick, if you appreciate good faith attempts to wrestle with contemporary social issues, guided by the logic of Thomas Sowell's dictum, there are no solutions, only trade-offs, then do me a favor and click the like and subscribe buttons to keep up with new episodes as they come out. Now back to Kamala's conundrum. The third reason why Kamala likely did not engage with manosphere podcasters is because for some time now, the Democratic Party has been actively disinterested in attending to the concerns of men, and white men in particular. Before the election, and even up to a couple of months ago, if you went to the Democratic National Committee website, there was a page titled Who We Serve, and it listed 16 identity groups that the DNC explicitly stated it served. The racial and ethnic groups it listed were African Americans, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, ethnic Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans. The gender identities noted were women, and at least in the minds of the DNC, the T element of the LGBTQ plus community. Okay, so who is missing from this list? Well, you guessed it. White people as a racial group and men as a gender. Almost every other conceivable category of American citizen is listed, but not these two groups. NYU professor Scott Galloway described the message that this sent to young men who might have otherwise been interested in the Democratic Party but felt driven away.
When you are purposely and explicitly advocating for 76% of the population, are you advocating for them or are you discriminating against the 24%? And that's how I think a lot of young men feel. Quite frankly, they just don't feel seen by the Democratic Party.
Thus, when Kamala was deciding whether or not to engage with podcasters like Joe Rogan, she likely heard from other Democrats that those content creators serve the interests of white men, while we Democrats are not here to serve their interests. We Democrats want to focus on serving minority groups and women because this aligns with our values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. So it's not clear to me that Kamala felt that she was even missing out on anything by avoiding the podcast bros. Indeed, only a handful of Democratic strategists were suggesting that she needed to reach out to the manosphere's massive online audiences. I think that ultimately, Kamala and her team felt that the Democratic coalition was large enough to overcome Trump without engaging with young men and their issues. As we know, this was a huge mistake. But has Kamala or the Democratic Party learned any lessons from this misstep? In her new book, 107 Days, which recounts her condensed campaign for president, Kamala details some of the conversations that went on between her team and Joe Rogan's for a potential appearance on his podcast. She focuses on the many offers and counter-offers made, the scheduling issues that arose, and her team's failure to land the interview on terms she found acceptable. But she blames Rogan, saying his team says we never committed, which is accurate, but misleading. The plain truth, I wanted to go on Joe Rogan's podcast on October 25th. He chose Trump instead. Indeed, even though Rogan had offered Kamala multiple other time slots, on the day of October 25th, Rogan interviewed Trump rather than Kamala. However, the impression she leaves of this episode in the book is that with such a compressed schedule and so many other competing demands, She was not willing to prioritize reaching out to male voters more than what her team had attempted by trying to get a Rogan appearance. His podcast was her campaign's one big play in this space, a Hail Mary pass that would hopefully earn her some much needed points with men. But when it didn't pan out, she seems to have delegated male engagement duties to Tim Walz while she focused on other constituencies.
Do you, in hindsight, wish you'd just put your foot down and said, I'm going to go do it?
I don't know if it would have made a difference. The issue, it was really about what's the trade-off in terms of votes and where I spend my time. Do I spend my time traveling for 5 hours and back versus being for that period of time in a swing state? And that was the trade-off.
So while Kamala's book suggests that at this moment, she doesn't take responsibility for failing to reach men during her campaign,
there was a lot of games being played around the scheduling, and it didn't happen. I don't have anything against the people who turn on to Joe Rogan and would love to be able to talk with him in a direct manner, as I wanted to during the campaign.
she does still have time to learn more about men's concerns before the 2028 election. If she takes constructive feedback to heart, she could remedy her lack of engagement with male voters by going onto the Bro podcast now and starting a learning process. If she did, it could go some way in rehabilitating her political prospects at a time when her personal brand appears to be lacking. I say this, but because of her upbringing, her party's skepticism of men, and her own defensive instincts, I don't think this will happen. Indeed, I fear that she will never be able to truly understand what is affecting men today or how the government can play a role in improving their prospects along with women's at the same time. And I think that's a pity. The DNC also seems to have missed the meaning of its defeat, doubling down on identity politics and engaging in circular firing squads against their own elected officials. This does not bode well for the party. The only major Democrats who seem to have understood how the party's lack of attention to men's issues has hurt them is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and Pete Buttigieg, the former Secretary of Transportation. Newsom has started his own podcast, inviting guests like Charlie Kirk from the right and Scott Galloway from the left, who both talk about men's issues in a sympathetic manner. Buttigieg was a guest on a massive Bro podcast with comedian Andrew Schulz, and he has been a regular contributor on Fox News as well. Yet here's the thing. Neither of these guys were strong on men's issues before the election, keeping to the party line during that period. This raises serious credibility questions that we can discuss at a later time. But these are men who actually do understand men's issues because of their backgrounds, their relationships, and their curiosity as flexible politicians who understand that if you want to win, you have to figure out what is working and what is not working. And this currently sets them apart ever so slightly from other Democratic contenders who appear slow to grasp why they lost the election and how to improve their chances going forward. Whether Newsom or Buttigieg can leverage their engagement with men's issues to greater glory remains to be seen. But if the Democrats want an electable candidate for 2028, they need to rethink their commitment to identity politics, which is a big part of what put them into this situation in the first place. Kamala herself needs to rethink her priorities if she wants a chance at winning office again. She has other political liabilities as well, of course.
I love electric school buses.
And there would be trade-offs for her focusing more directly on men's issues. Everything has a cost. But until she and the Democratic Party can say that they are here to serve all Americans, regardless of their racial, ethnic, or gender identities, then they will likely continue to struggle to get back into the White House.